Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, where we provide world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and it's my absolute pleasure to be here today hosting the show Authentic Achievements, starring Adele Randall. This is a program where we explore all different parts of the psyche of our decision-making process and the choices that we make to help us achieve our goals. We also share some tips and some real-life stories about challenges that come up along the way for us and how maybe those challenges can be key learnings for you to get to where you want to go. The name Authentic Achievements comes from Adele Randall's platform that she created and founded, and we're so grateful to have her here with us today. She is a TEDx speaker, she's a coach, she's a mentor, she's an expert correspondent, and she's also an author. Let's welcome Adele Randall from London. Hello.
Hi, Dr. Jacalyn. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Really good, thank you. You're looking well.
Thank you, as are you. You know, it's interesting. I feel like I just did that introduction twice, which I did because I forgot to hit go live. And the reason why I bring it up is because even though things may look a certain way, that doesn't mean behind the scenes that they really are that way.
I so get that. The amount of times that you kind of think, I think, be like a swan, but just like a swan, I'm pedaling really hard to try and keep the graceful outer image. So I completely get how you feel.
Well, Adele, I wish you would tell us a little bit about how you came up with the name Authentic Achievements and about your own platform that people can also come on to be interviewed.
Yeah, of course, and thank you. So I came up with Authentic Achievements having spent many years desperately trying not to be myself, trying to be anybody else, trying to kind of fit in, and until I realized that actually being me was okay. And the one thing that I'd always had people level at me was you are always authentic, you are always exactly the same. And so I wanted to create a platform where people could come together and learn how to get comfortable being authentically themselves, because that can take a bit of courage sometimes, because you've got to be vulnerable about the things that you aren't good at just as much as be accountable and take ownership of the things that you are. And so it got founded probably about 4 years ago, and then I was really lucky to meet yourself, Dr. Jacalyn, and to join at the start of the USA Global at that point Global TV only, wasn't it, journey, and now obviously it's expanded to the amazing channel and network that it is now, and I'm super grateful to still be here. And we get to share people's amazing stories. So very often it's just you and I chatting, but sometimes it's other people coming and sharing their authentic experience and their lived experience to help us all find some different perspectives and hopefully overcome any challenges that we're facing on the way to our goals.
Absolutely. Excellent points. And we always have such a great conversation. We get lost in the time, that's for sure. You know, today we're talking about unveiling hidden truths and conversations challenging our perceptions. And I was listening to a song recently, and one of the lines in the song really stuck out for me. And I want to have you comment on it because I think it really goes along with the topic. A fool will lose tomorrow looking back on yesterday.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
What does that mean to you?
I think so often we miss out on opportunities because we're too busy digging into the past of things that have already gone. And it reminds me of that old saying, you know, that tomorrow no longer needs you. So yesterday no longer needs you, and tomorrow isn't promised. That's why the only thing you can focus on is today. It's why they call it the present. And that one's always rung true for me, because I was dreadful for spending so much time digging back over my past. Could I have done it differently? Could I have got a different outcome? Could I have changed something? But the reality is, I can't go back and change yesterday. It's already gone. And if I'm too busy looking at it, I'll miss the opportunities for today, which will change what happens to me tomorrow. And I think that's kind of what that line in that song's saying, is that actually it's foolish to spend all of our time on our past, because it's already gone. We can look at it for lessons. We can look at it for things that, you know, with the benefit of hindsight, we all have 20/20 vision. But that's all we should be looking at it for, because if not, we miss out on the right now. And the right now is going to be the doors that open to make tomorrow a very different day.
Absolutely. I love the way that you tie that in. And I think that we do spend a lot of time looking back and also looking ahead and worrying. So I'm interested in how we can take that curiosity to help us grow that sense of wonder, that childlike essence, to grow and try new things. And at the same time, temper that fear of failure.
It's so true. I mean, we worry, don't we? We allow the fear that we're going to get it wrong to take over. I mean, how many times have you worried about a particular conversation or a particular situation, and you might have spent days and days worrying about it, and then you have the conversation and go, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought. And it happens to me all the time. And I'm like, so why did I bother wasting so many days worrying about it? Why not, a bit like, you know, they used to say, if you cut yourself and you've got plaster, you've sometimes just got to rip off the Band-Aid rather than kind of dwell in that moment. And I think it is hard sometimes to have the discipline to say, actually, let me look at what I learned. You know, what was the lesson? And for me, that's one of the questions that when I'm looking back at something that hasn't gone well, I say, okay, what lessons can I take from this? Because then that turns it from being a mistake, a failure, or something that went wrong, to being an opportunity to learn. And that mentally feels a lot nicer, that I took an opportunity to learn than I'm a failure at what I did. Because we only really fail if we stop trying. You know, if we stop trying to take the lessons and reevaluate and make those changes, that's our genuine failure. And when we think about hope and fear, so what we're hopeful for hasn't happened. We have had to imagine that in our brain. And what we're fearful of also hasn't happened yet. We have to imagine it in our brain, the same brain. And so neither one of them is more credible or more likely. But whichever one we choose to focus on is the one that is going to happen, because we're basically programming ourselves a bit like a sat nav to head steaming first straight at what we're directing. So if we focus on the thing we're fearful of, we're more likely to have that thing happen to us. And if we're focusing instead on the thing we're hopeful for, then we're more likely to have that happen to us. And if you think about the feeling of excitement, it's got very similar elements to the feeling of fear. So we get heightened sense of throughout your body. So one trick somebody taught me many years ago was every time I thought I'm scared of something, to instead go, I'm excited about it, and just see how quickly it shifts and allows you to take that step forward.
As you use that word excited, I felt this little like dee in my heart, like, oh. So it's interesting because you and I are both single women. You're a single mom. You recently lost your dad. I lost my mom. And we don't have people that are there with us on a regular basis to give us coaching or direction about the choices that we make. And so my question for you is, there are many people out there across the world who are inundated with problems and challenges, whether it's financial, health related, et cetera. And then the two of us, we have our own challenges, but we have to make our decisions based on our gut and our instinct. And sometimes somebody who's inundated with problem or problems or challenges, and somebody who has tons of opportunity may still view a potential new road as an encumbrance or as something that's terrifying. So how do we get that? We don't have a big backpack full of stuff, right? But other people do, but yet we can end on the same road with somebody else.
You can. I mean, you just never know where the road's going to lead you. And, if life's taught me anything, it's that it regularly will give you a plot twist. And I choose to use the term plot twist because I love reading. And a plot twist often, whilst derailing you in the moment, ends up making total sense at the end of the story. And so I trust that any plot twists that comes my way are going to make sense somewhere in the future rather than allow them to derail me right now. And for me, I have to break things down to be relatively small. So, I can't always solve the whole problem. I can't always see how I'm going to get past whatever that plot twist is. And so what I choose to do, and for me so far, it's worked. It's got me through quite a lot of life's challenges, as we know. But it is to go, what one step can I see? Like, even if it's even a seemingly insignificant step, what step can I see? And I make myself take it, because with every step, we change our viewpoint. Something else comes into view, and when we start to move forward, and we move further away from the challenge that we're facing. And so I remember at one particularly, turbulent time in my life, I just separated. I was just about to go into hospital. I'd just become a single mum. And I had a friend say to me, I can't decide, Kim, if you're incredibly strong and incredibly stupid. And I said, I'm going to go with both in equal parts, probably. And she was like, I don't understand how you're still going, how you're still smiling, how you don't seem to have let this dent you. And I was like, well, I can't solve all of that. It's too big. I said, so all I'm focusing on is what is the one thing that I can do right now that I can focus on. And for those first few weeks, sometimes it was adulting appropriately and well for 12 hours. It was like being there and making sure that my little girl was looked after and fed and loved and nurtured, and making sure that I did my job, and the team that I was leading had everything that they needed. And it's like, if I can get through that for that 12 hours, then that's good enough. That's good enough for right now. And once you've done that for a few days, actually you start to be able to add a little bit more in. It starts to become less of a challenge. But I think sometimes we get stuck trying to solve the whole problem before we take the first step.
And I want to call upon something that you can relate to directly. There are many times when we're excited about something. For example, you got selected as a TEDx speaker. And as the weeks, the days start to get closer and closer, I imagine that there's this excitement, the butterflies, but this overwhelming sense of dread and fear. And it's like that for so many things. We're so excited about something, and as the time comes closer, it's just like, what is that about?
Oh, I don't know. And so I'm smiling because it just reminds me of the fact that I remember 2 weeks before I did my TEDx, going to do a rehearsal. So we had to do a full rehearsal. And it was with the other amazing speakers that were at my event. And we'd become really good friends over the 12 weeks that we'd been being trained to make sure that we delivered to the level that they expected us to. And I had to do my little speech. And I stood there, and there was just such kind people. It was a tiny little room. It really shouldn't have been too much of a problem. And I got to the end of it. And I knew, as I was stood there, I knew my legs were shaking. I could feel it. And no matter how much I moved, I couldn't get them to stop shaking. And I'd unfortunately chosen to wear jeans on that particular day. And everyone fed back and they were like, from here up, Kim, you would not have been able to tell. Your voice didn't change. Like you didn't get red or anything. You looked perfectly calm. I said, but from there down, you were literally like a jelly. We weren't even certain how you were still standing. I was like, no, I'm terrified. And yet my TEDx was on the power of belief and that difference, the bit we've just talked about around, what we're fearful of and what we're hopeful for being created by the same brain. But I think sometimes we have been programmed more heavily to believe in the thing that we're fearful of, the fear of getting it wrong, the fear of failing, the fear of not being perfect. And, a lot of people I meet are growing up with similar challenges to all of us, which was like, you've got to be perfect, don't get it wrong, make sure that you do your best and don't fail. And we create our kind of blueprint for ourselves at the age of 7, and we embed it we enforce it at the age of 14, and we embed it at the age of 21. And unless we go back and look at it, that becomes our subconscious operating system. And I look at mine, and if you say, okay, it was embedded at 21, I'm 51 now, so that's 30 years ago. Would you actually allow your laptop, your computer, or your phone to run on software that hasn't been updated in 30 years? Of course you wouldn't. So that's why we have to go in and do the work on ourselves and go, okay, where are the bugs that we need to fix? Where are the things that when we viewed them with our childlike brain, and they made perfect sense, but now we have the beauty of our adult brain's viewpoint, and we can look at those and say, do we still agree? Do we still believe that that is what happened? And I don't know if anybody you're watching or listening has ever heard somebody replay a story from your childhood, and their version of it is very different to the version that you've been telling yourself for years. And it might not be that their version is wrong. It might not be that our version is wrong. It's just that we viewed it from a different perspective. And so once we realize that actually just because I'm right doesn't make you wrong, and just because you're right doesn't make me wrong, we can now start to see the 3D part of what really went on and allow ourselves to see if there's a different solution that we should therefore have taken away from it that will serve us better in our adult life.
Spot on, KIM-ADELE, as always. And I'm also thinking that there's that terrifying fear that we succeed, and what comes next, and how can we, like the duck treading underwater, we've got to go faster and faster because we need more and more and more to keep people's attention, or to keep ourselves at a certain level or a certain income. And there's a whole set of challenges that come with that. And I think we've seen, at least here in the US, in Hollywood, there's a number of A-level celebrities who have decided to leave the business and go live a different type of life for many reasons. But what about that fear of succeeding and getting ahead of ourselves, or instead, again, enjoying the moment, the ride, the journey, instead of what's up in the future?
A great question, Dr. Jacalyn. And I think, I can't remember who it was that said it, that it's not our darkness that scares us, it's our light. It's the fact that we might actually be really good at something. And that feels a bit egotistical, and yet we're told ego is bad. But anything overplayed is bad. If we've got too much of it, it's bad. But if we've not got enough of it, it's equally bad. And I think we do worry. We worry that if we do succeed, people might think we think more of ourselves than we should, or that they're going to expect more and more. And will we be able to continue to succeed, or will we be a one-hit wonder? And then how will people view us? And is it harder to have had the success and then lose it than it is to have never had the success? So we spend all of our time mapping out these scenarios and questioning ourselves before we get anywhere. We kind of almost risk assess everything we're ever going to do, and then we're going to take action based on our risk appetite. And each of us will have a different risk appetite. But I think sometimes we get very stuck on the cost of doing. Well, if I do that, and then people are going to think this, or people are going to think that, or something's going to happen over here. But actually, there's a cost of not doing it. So for me, one of the things I do is look at any opportunity that comes up and go, okay, so what could go well, and what could go badly, and which one of those do I think is most likely? And also, the one I ask myself all the time is, what's the worst that could happen in either it going really well or it going really badly? What's the worst that can happen, and can I live with it? Because that helps me decide whether it sits in my personal risk appetite. And it's interesting about our perceptions, and obviously that's what we're talking about on the show, but we tell ourselves all kinds of things, and we very often tell ourselves that other people are going to think or say them, but we've not asked those people if they're going to think or say them. And I remember many years ago, it's probably about 25 years ago now, I was asked, as part of a self-development thing, to go and ask people, friends, colleagues, family, people that I knew and trusted, to be really honest with me and say, can you tell me one or two things where you see those as my strengths? And could you also tell me one or two ways where I get in my own way, where you go, I wonder why she does that? And and I really need you to be really honest with me, because I'm trying to develop myself and, continue to grow and evolve and get better. And it came back from people almost unanimously that I was brave and fearless. And I was like, I just don't get that. I live in fear all of the time, fear that I'm going to look stupid, fear I'm going to get it wrong, fear that people think I shouldn't be there. At the time, I was carrying a massive imposter syndrome about the fact that my only qualification was in hairdressing, and I was doing these big jobs that I really shouldn't be doing on paper. So I had to go back to him and go, can I just ask? I really don't get brave and fearless. I don't understand where you're coming from. So could you help me with that? And I guess an important part of this story is I'm currently in the 36th house that I've lived in since I left home at 21. So I've moved a lot over the years, usually for work. And they came back and said, well, you'll literally up sticks and move somewhere where you know nobody for a job you're not 100% convinced you can do. And I said, we think that's kind of brave and fearless. I was like, wow, that's fascinating. I have assumed for all of these years that you all thought I was flighty and a little bit stupid. So for years, I played these scenarios in my head and going, well, everybody thinks you're flighty and a bit stupid anyway, Kim, so they'll just map it down to that, until I realized that that was my perspective. And when I asked them what their perspective was, it was totally different. So now one of the things I do is when I find myself telling myself that someone thinks this about me, I ask them. It's going to be really, I'd love to know what you think about me. But equally, it was really liberating for me when I realized that other people's opinion of me is none of my business. My opinion of me, making sure that everything I do, I did for the right intention, that that I was trying to do the right thing. I was trying to be kind. I was trying to be honest. I was trying to add value, which is part of mine and Scarlett's family mission statement, which is to live a life of passionate curiosity and pass thoughts, words, and deeds through the lenses of, is it kind, is it honest, and does it add value? And once I kind of done that, it allows me to make better decisions that fit with my value set. Now, that doesn't mean I never get it wrong. Even though my intention's right, doesn't mean to say my impact can't be off. But if that ever happens, then I take accountability for how the impact landed, and I apologize for that, and I explain what my intention was, which I appreciate doesn't take away how the person felt, but it helps them to understand I wasn't trying to make them feel that, and that I am able to, apologize for any upset that I caused. I find that a much easier way to live than when I spent all of my time that worried about what people would think, that actually I just became stuck and incapable of movement sometimes.
I so appreciate you sharing that part of your journey, especially about the 36 times that you moved. You have me beat. I'm only at 21, but I am 10 years older. So I don't know, I'm running out of time to catch up to you. So what I'm wondering is, you ask people what their thoughts are about you, and they shared. How often will you defer to someone else before you make a decision? So in other words, do you typically trust your own instincts when you're going to make a major decision, or do you run it by whomever before you decide?
Most of the really big decisions I've ever made, I trust my gut. And actually, that's the one thing that I wish, and I keep trying to work on this, that I did more of it. But really trust your gut, not trust your gut after you've psychoanalyzed it for 4 hours and then started to really doubt it. Because what happens is our gut instinct is designed to just give us where we're supposed to go. And then we use our logical brain to try and overanalyze that. And very often you end up realizing, you go back and say, oh, I made a mistake. You go, I knew I shouldn't have done that way. I knew I should have done it the other way. But I talked myself out of it. I over rationalized it, or I spent too long with the voices in my head coming up with where they need to hit. So I try and make sure that I always write down what my gut feeling is, so that I can remind myself of it when I get into that psychoanalysis. But sometimes when I do defer to asking other people is when I find that actually I've boxed myself into a corner, and I'm so convinced now that everybody's thinking these things, that actually what I really need is just to go, well, if they are, deal with it. So, if they genuinely are thinking those, rather than just being sat here worried about it, go and find out if they are, and then you can deal with the set of the hand you've been dealt. And I never go, oh, how do you feel about me? Because you don't want to put people in an awkward place. For me, what I've always found quite helpful is to say, I really would value your really honest feedback on a couple of things that I do well and a couple of things where I get in my own way. Because then what you're doing is you're framing it for them. You're giving them permission to give you that feedback, but you're also allowing them to go to feel more comfortable with it. Because as we've chatted on a previous show, people don't like unsolicited feedback, but equally people don't like to just sometimes be put in a position where it's like, tell me how you feel about me, because that might feel a bit intimidating, I guess, for want of a better term. You're going along with your day, and all of a sudden somebody faces you with that. And if anybody does that to me, I immediately go, oh dear, well, do they really want me to be honest? Do they want me to sugar the pill, or do they want me to? Whereas if somebody says to me a couple of things they do well and a couple of ways where they get in their own way, it's already softening the constructive feedback that you're going to give them, because they see that they can sometimes get in their own way. And I think that's one of the big challenges, is we have blind spots for a reason. We're blind to them. And I remember years ago sitting in front of my team. I've been there about 2 weeks, and I said, the first thing I need to ask you is, if I ever do anything that really annoys you guys, or that you think isn't helping, even if it's really obvious, really, really obvious, please do me a favor and tell me anyway. Because even if it's really obvious to you, I guarantee I probably don't know I'm doing it, because we do have these blind spots for a reason. And I can only be the best leader I can be if you share with me when the things I'm doing don't land well. Because if not, I'll keep doing them and you'll keep being annoyed, and that's not going to be much fun for any of us. And I'll be oblivious because I'm blind to it. And that one's always worked for me as well, because you're kind of setting the stage for people to tell you the things that you're getting wrong, by acknowledging that actually we do all have blind spots. None of us are perfect, and therefore we will get things wrong.
And I also think that with blind spots, sometimes we have to go on our own journey, because somebody else who cares about us might already see what we're not seeing. And even if they brought it up, we still have to get there from point A to point B. And I think the other thing is that many times we rely on other people. Maybe we have a partner, significant other, somebody to be our cheerleader and go yes or no. But what I found is, by taking the journey by yourself, you may end up exactly the same place as you would have if you had taken the journey with someone else. And yet you had so many other steps that you had to go through to get the approval and have the conversations. So I think we should listen to our intuition, because in truth, none of us know where it is we're supposed to end up. And so how can person A know what's best for me, or person B know what, because I don't know what's best for them. And I think that also goes into something that we've talked about before, which is solving problems for other people, especially when they're not asking for a solution.
Yeah, it's right. We're all on our own path, and therefore we can learn from other people's lived experience, but it doesn't mean to say that that is going to work the same for us, or that their destination is the right destination for us. We've got to, as you say, we've got to take the journey, and we've got to go inward on that and say, how does it feel? Does this feel right? Are we living in a place of joy, or are we living in a place of fear and lack and loss? And if that's the case, how do we change that? How do we alter it? Because we're supposed to be living in a place of joy as much as we possibly can, doing the things that bring us joy, being with the people that bring us joy, and that could be very different. I've got lots of friends who've got amazing lives, but they're not the ones I would. They're not the ones I would. They wouldn't be my journey, but I love that it's their journey. And so you are absolutely right. You do have to bring that in, and we do all have people that will come up and kind of should all over us. You should do this, you should do that, you should do the other. And I'm like, well, I never tell anybody what they should do, because it's their choice what they do. I might give them some options of things to consider, but never that they should do it. And we've chatted before on that. When people tell you what you should do, they're really talking to themselves about something that's going on in their world. And so I always kind of thank them kindly for their feedback, and then make my own choices, because should usually means that you don't think the other person has got the power or the skills or the knowledge to make that choice. And I believe every one of us has got the power, the knowledge, and the answer within us. We just sometimes need to ask a better question.
I agree with you. And I also think what's interesting to me is because many times I have people, especially in business, well, you should consider this, and you should be doing this. And I'm thinking, well, you never did that. How do you know? How do you know that that's the answer or that's the path? And it ties in with what you just said. I think that they don't think I have the confidence to make a decision. And I'm thinking, well, how do they have the confidence to make a decision for me in a field that they have no experience in? So I'm going to go to people who are where I want to be, and I'm going to ask them. And you know what I found also, KIM-ADELE, is typically when you go to someone who is further ahead or is on the path where you want to go, they believe in you because you reached out to them. They know what it takes. And I don't think I've ever been turned down when I've reached out to someone and said, hey, could you give a hand? Could you give me some feedback, some direction? And it's in a positive, proactive way, as opposed to the people who are not on the path where you are. I'm not saying they're behind, but they're not on the same journey, but they have a lot to say.
Yeah, they do. And I always think that's because they're stuck in their own journey, whatever that is, but they can see yours so clearly. And I think you're right. Asking somebody who's already got there. One of the questions I always ask on my show at the very end is, if you could go back and tell your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be? And the reason I do that is because they're on their journey, but they can go back and say, this is the thing I learned. I wish I'd learned it sooner. And almost always the things that people come back with are one or two of the same things. I wish I'd trusted myself sooner. I wish I'd listened to my gut instinct. I wish I hadn't listened to everybody else. Because I think that that's been the thing. Once they've got to that achievement, it's been because actually they started to trust themselves. They started to give themselves credit for having overcome all the plot twists that life had thrown at them so far. Because each of us are to your point, we're on a different journey. We have different things thrown at us. And I know some of my friends have had things thrown at me. I don't know how you've survived that. I don't. But equally, they look at some of the things that I've had and gone, we don't know how you're surviving that either. And I think that's because we're all different, and therefore they're going to impact us differently. So something that we might think is insurmountable, when we see it happening for a friend, they may think exactly the same of something that we've gone through and survived, because they've not had to experience it yet. So they can't imagine what it was like, just like we can't imagine what it was like for the insurmountable thing that they got over.
For sure. And we've talked before about how you can be so close to achieving your goal or going somewhere that you never even dreamed of, but we give up. So my last question for today's show is, when we're on the journey and we have our curiosity and we've decided to move forward, but things are not working out, things out of our control, many times we'll raise our hand and go, I guess the universe, I guess God, I guess whatever is telling me that I'm on the wrong path. So how do we know? And again, this could be an entire show, but how do we know if it's the wrong path or we're just being challenged to see how far we're willing to go to get there?
Oh, that's a great question. I think, because it will always be such a combination of both, can't it? I mean, I always think for me, if the goal is something that is really important to me, then no matter what the challenge is, if something it's not going as well as I wanted it to, I'll ask myself, is that goal still really important? And a good way for me to know if it's really important is to try saying, it's not important to me too, whatever the goal is, and see how uncomfortable and unhappy it makes me feel. If it makes me feel really uncomfortable and really unhappy, I know that the goal's the right goal. I know the goal is one that's driven from the heart. and soul. It's where I'm supposed to be. And that allows me to then go, okay, so I can't do it the way I'm doing it. How might I get there? And I used to share this with my team. I was like, my job is to let us know that we're going to Edinburgh, as an example. Our job as the team is to work out how best to get there. And if we start off on that journey and something happens, like we set off and we're in the train, but we're in the UK and we literally stop for any form of weather. So if we have bad weather, the train stops running. So we can't carry on the train. We've now got to, we've got to do something else. What are our other options? And I think sometimes that's the thing, is going, okay, it's not the path that's wrong. It might be that we have to take a different mode of transport. But for me, checking first on that goal, trying to play it back to myself by saying it's not important to me and seeing whether or not I can live with how that makes me feel has been my personal way of making sure that my goal is always the right goal for me, even if that's not what somebody else would like to see as their goal.
I love that. Thank you so much. You always know how to it's like a funnel. You bring everything down to very succinct answers and actionable things that we can take away. I also look at things when I'm about to make major decision. Like, for example, moving is a major decision and you've done it 36 times. There's a lot of work that goes into it. There's a lot of effort, energy, time plan, and then you don't know when you get there how you're going to feel. But what you do know is how you feel exactly where you are. What you do know is you may be giving up an opportunity that you have no idea where it's going to take you. But if you stay where you are, you know what to expect. And sometimes that can affect our mental capacity to feel good about ourselves or even enjoy our life, but yet we'll stay in the same place because we're so terrified of what's on the other side, knowing that we're miserable, or that we just decided that this way that I feel, this anxiety, that this is just normal and I'm just going to take it because it's part of me now, this anxiety, for example, anxiety. Whereas saying there could be joy, excitement, empowerment by opening the door and walking through and going somewhere new.
It's so true. And I think we live in a world of polarity. For every up, there's a down. For every left, there's a right. So for every fear, there is an equal and opposite hope. That is, a chance that it could go well is just as big as the chance that it could go wrong. And I think it was Einstein who said, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. I believe the same to be true for every thought that we have. For every thought we have, there is an equal and opposite thought that we could be having. And so, but we are pre-designed to focus on the fact it'll go wrong. And so, I find myself to start off with going all the reasons why it could go wrong. And then I go, but what if it goes right? What might be all the reasons for if it goes right? And bearing in mind, there's a 50-50 chance because both have got an equal opposite reaction. 50% is pretty good odds. And if I'm not happy where I am now, why would I not take that change? And don't get me wrong, it has gone wrong. I once early on, I upped sticks and I moved about 100 miles away from where I lived to do a totally different job than I'd ever done before. And I didn't know anybody, and I moved on my own. I was in my early 20s. And I stayed at that job for 3 months, 2 months of which were my notice period. And then I went back 100 miles and commuted for the next 6 months to go back to work somewhere similar to where I'd worked before. But for me, the lesson in that, so rather than getting really frustrated and cross at myself, it was like, okay, so understand why that happened. And I realized that actually I was that miserable where I had been working that instead of running towards the job I wanted, I was running away from the job that I had. And that for me was a massive learning curve, was saying, am I running towards something or am I running away from it? And because if I'm running away from it, I'm going to make the wrong choice. I need to know what I'm running towards. So I ask myself that question all the time now, to just sense check what's the real driver. And because when we're running away from something, we have rose-tinted glasses on what we're running in the direction of. It's like, oh, it's going to be perfect. And that's like me all over. Well, no, maybe it isn't, because actually your driver was the wrong driver. So I find that's really helped me stay centered.
Fabulous. I just love doing this show with you. And I have to share with you that I've taken the last 6 months or so to think about a major decision that I'm going to make. And now I'm going to actually put the steps in action to accomplish it. And this show is in perfect timing with me because I'm at that point where, you start to look back and go, I don't know, I could still be safe over here, but I already decided I'm going there. And the steps that you have to take, for example, when you moved, you know about the packing, the plan, like it's a lot of stuff, and you can get at any moment lost in the tasks that you need to take to get you to where you need to go.
It's so true. And yet when you get there, even in that one that I did that went horribly wrong, I learned something major. I learned something that helped me make all the future decisions go much better. And so I'm super grateful for that one. And you kind of, when you get there, it's like, it is exciting. It is, it can be terrifying, but it is equally exciting. And the one thing life will never be, if you're willing to push yourself outside of that fear, is it'll never be dull. And for me, that's got to be my aim in life, is that it's not dull.
It's so exciting, especially all of the experiences you've had. How can people reach out to you, and what's the best way to get scheduled on your platform, Authentic Achievements, as well as here?
Of course. I love people getting in touch, so please do reach out. You can get me on LinkedIn. I'm on most social media as KIM-ADELE 10. You can come along and have a look at our platform, which is authenticachievements.com, or you can email me directly at either kim@kimadelerandall.com or kimadele@authenticachievements.com. And you can book on to come onto this show by visiting USA Global TV and Radio and finding this show in the schedule to book on. But if you've got a story and a lived experience that you think you could share that will help other people to have different things to consider when they're facing their own journey, we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you so much, KIM-ADELE. I know you had a very busy day today and you had to make time to get back to do the show, so I really do appreciate it. And we'll look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it, and I will see you then, and a safe onward journey.
Thank you very much. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Please do reach out to Adele Randall. She's been with me for 4 years on this platform, and she adds so much knowledge, expertise, and experience. If you'd like to be a guest on any of our shows, just go to usaglobaltv.com/book your session. We're signing off for now. We've got a whole day full of shows. So wherever you are watching, we'd love to have you as part of our YouTube channel family. We have 2 YouTube channels, USA Global TV and Radio, and also Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. So if you can subscribe there and then hit the little bell, then you'll be made aware of every time that we're going live. So thanks again for joining us. We're closing out now, and we look forward to seeing you again later today for the Corner Bookstore. Bye. This program has been brought to you in part by Zane Carson Carruth, etiquette and protocol expert, international award-winning author, television show host, and philanthropist. Thank you to Zane, our official diamond sponsor for USA Global TV and Radio in partnership with E360 TV. Zane is the author of The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever, as well as many other children's books. She's also the television host of Elegance, Polished Demeanor, and Posh Living, seen on USA Global TV and Radio.
Hi, my name is Zane Carson Carruth, and I'm the author of this book, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever.
Reading is magic. Studies have shown that reading to your children lays the foundation for greater success in life. Reading helps develop language and vocabulary skills. It helps improve memory, and it encourages curiosity and inspires creativity. The benefits are immeasurable, and as a parent, you'll benefit too. In only 10 or 15 minutes a day, you'll be creating more memories and a bonding experience that will last for years to come. So take time to read to your children. Read them books about things that engage and interest them. Tales of fairies and magic fascinate children, and as everyone knows, the Tooth Fairy is at the top of the list. If your child loves magic, wands, adventure, and what child doesn't, you'll love reading them books from the trademarked series, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever. Follow along as Bella, the world's first tooth fairy, accidentally starts the Tooth Fairy tradition. Learn the tricks of being a professional tooth fairy in the book, A Bella Starts at Tooth Fairy School. Your child's imagination will soar as you read the adventures of Abella and her magic wand. These wonderful books are available at worldsfirsttoothfairy.com and at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart.
To learn more about Zane, contact her through her website, zanecarruth.com, ZANECARRUTH.com. Order Zane's books and merchandise. Contact her about being a keynote speaker at your next event.